better than a day at the office, though. I do remember saying that.
We're live.
We're good, bud.
Okay. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. We have present Tim Patrikas and Tim Keeney, Selectmen. Mike Marinaccio, Chief Financial Officer. Brian Wissinger, Assistant Finance Director. Kim LaFleur, Operations Director. And welcome, Todd Rowland, Department of Public Works Director. First item on the agenda is boards and commissions. I have a resignation letter to read from Mr. Jeff Lipton. Board of Selectmen, Town of Summers, please accept my resignation from the Long-Term Recovery Committee, effective immediately. Currently, I am committed to business, farm, and golf activities which require my sole attention. Not so much as golf course, I'm not playing golf.
The actual job, not playing it.
Thank you for consideration, seriously, Jeff. Disappointing, but I understand Jeff is preoccupied with his businesses and his farm.
We also had too many Republicans on the committee, right?
Kim had mentioned that.
So he's going to get jerked anyway. So.
Well, he was in here like, oh, you want to resign?
Yeah.
And he did.
There's the door.
Well, does anybody ever say no to that when they're volunteering?
So the question is, do we want to replace him?
He announced early on, I don't think so.
Okay.
He announced early on that he wasn't going to be available until October because of the crops.
Of course, he's a hay guy. So, I mean, that's what.
Anyway, so I think that was well known, and so his not being there is not.
So I think, based upon what I've seen, and what you've indicated, Tim, is that we have a pretty good cross section on this long-term recovery committee, and
good attendance too.
Yeah, that's good.
Tim, do you want to make the motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Jeff Lipton.
I'll second with regrets and thanks for service.
Same thing with me with regrets. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Authorization for scheduled payments. I think you received the.
Yeah, sorry, they didn't go out until today. I was
He's been off.
took a couple of days off to celebrate my 8th wedding anniversary. So.
Oh, congratulations.
Make a motion to approve the scheduled payments as presented, $501,266.36.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor?
I did have a couple of questions. I didn't get a chance to talk.
Yeah, no,
I usually just go through and check some things here. I'm just curious about CCM on page 1. What is that?
I believe that one is our annual dues. Yeah.
Make a conference of municipalities.
Yeah. Which we attend every year.
Yeah.
Okay. On page 3, in the middle of the page, Roast LLC. It sounded interesting.
Roast.
Oh,
That's something
Is
with
that
the
a big picnic or something?
That's something with the
It's the
registrars.
register voters
Yeah.
stuff that they need.
Strange name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I always laugh when they come in to get it signed. I'm
Yeah.
like, roast.
Acronym.
What kind of
I was
roast?
curious. Page 4, let's see. See, you sent something to Rogers Memorial again. Didn't we just write a check to them last month for
We do every month.
$3,100?
We do every month. That's,
Fees
burial fees and grave digging fees and marking.
The town pays for grave digging
That comes
fees?
out of the cemetery fund, but yeah, every time he digs a grave, he has a fee for it. He has a fee for
Doesn't he
marking
get paid
it.
by the person who...
Right, he gets...
The estate that the grave is for?
No,
No?
not for the actual burial, for the digging of the grave. No.
In probate, I've seen that. That gets paid for by the estate.
No.
No?
The way ours is set up, the cemetery fund pays for the burial fee, or for the digging, the marking, the landscaping, and and we also pay him a monthly sexton fee.
I see. So part of that comes out of the fee for the plot. In other words, that covers the...
Yeah, when we
offset-
sell a
Offset
plot.
that, it's
Yeah.
a cost which is offset by what we charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, correct, same thing with them, dues, is that the,
No, that's going to be
$18,500?
that's going to be special education, final payments for special education.
Okay,
Same with the May Institute down there. At
that's
the
the
bottom.
same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
Special ed, yeah.
Yep.
Wow. And under middle of page 5, just below Monty Moses, North Central, what is that?
That is the conservation district.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
That's the-
Joanna Shapiro. It's a semi-annual payment, so we pay in July and January.
So how does that work, the Conservation District?
They bill us. She's here.
She's our
what,
wetlands
she's here-
agent.
Yeah,
She's on the
wetlands agent.
Conservation
She's here, what,
Commission.
10 hours
Oh,
a week?
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so she's our liaison too.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay. That's it, thank you.
Yep.
I'm good?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Force that signature.
It's a scribble.
You ever see Trump's? What is that?
Only on the postcard you sent me that said you didn't qualify, sorry. Must have known my affiliation.
There you go, Brian. Brian?
Oh, thanks.
The next item on the agenda is approval of the July 2nd minutes. I
Uh,
wasn't
actually, we
here.
have the,
Transfers?
Oh,
oh no, I
sorry.
guess we did do minutes before transfers. I thought we were gonna do
Yeah,
transfers.
minutes are
My
before
bad,
transfers.
sorry.
I didn't see that.
Approval of
All
July
right,
2nd
minutes, okay.
I was not here for that.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of July 2nd meeting.
I'll second.
I reviewed them, they look good to me.
Yeah, everything looked good to me as well. The only thing I wanted to check, Tim, is that the members are correct.
Yeah, I did check that.
Okay.
They are correct.
Yep, just want to make sure we have the names right. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you know what the?
Transfers, Brian, you want to take us through these? You're in transfers.
Sorry, go ahead.
Except,
Yeah.
of course, Glenn Reynolds is not a member.
Did I write in there
Yeah,
that
he's not, that's a good point.
I think
He's
I
not a
did-
member, he's sort of the administrative,
But
Yeah.
it says the
Assistant.
last sentence covers that, I think, Tim,
Right.
so
He's not a
we can go
voting
back
member.
if you'd like to have it checked.
Right? I thought
Okay,
it-
non-voting member, okay. All
Same
right,
thing.
okay,
Is that okay?
sure.
We can modify it if you'd like.
So, doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys went through any of these or not. These are year-end transfers.
If you could just explain up front, just because I'm unfamiliar with this,
Yep.
this
So
approach.
the left hand column, the left hand 3 columns are all
Over-
accounts that were over
over
budget,
budget,
and the amount that they were over budget. The right hand 3 columns are the offsetting accounts, and the money's coming out of them to balance those accounts.
Right, and they're in the same account. I mean, basically,
I
they're in
would-
the same department.
I would say 95% of them are within the same department. There are a couple that aren't. Some of those were agreed upon transfers during the year. Some of those were, we had extreme savings somewhere, and we balanced it out of that. But I would say 95% of them are within the same department.
Is there a limit to the amount that you can transfer
No.
without authorization?
This is specifically under a state statute for the Board of Finance for year-end transfers to balance budget, as long as you don't go over your appropriation.
Yeah, as long as you don't increase the
your voted
appropriation.
budget. The only restriction is you can't use the funds that are returned by the Board of Ed
Yep.
to then balance the remainder
Yeah.
of the budget. It's always in its own little box.
This is like in the federal government, they call it
Yeah.
reprogramming of funds.
Yeah, I guess that's what.
Yeah.
and
But there's a
then it-
limitation about the amount that you
Oh,
can
yeah?
Yeah,
reprogram.
and this whole thing, after you look at it, and I'm not sure, are they required to vote? Yeah, well, they probably
Yeah,
are.
they
are.
vote to send them
Yeah.
to the Board of Finance,
And
and
then
they
the
sign
Board of
off on them.
Finance they'll scrutinize this and ask questions about
Yeah.
it and say, what happened here, and why is this over? We want to speak to the department that went way over, and so on and so forth. That's how it's played out over the past few years. They finally vote for it. We developed a balanced budget. The auditors audited it. It ends up in the financial statements.
Do we all have to sign, or just I have to sign?
Yeah, just two.
So, is there a fund balance from the town, from municipal government going back to the town, or just from education?
No, there are monies coming
Yes.
from the town back to fund balance as well.
Significant.
Um,
Roughly
Substantial.
Yeah.
I'd say around 7.
700,000.
Total with the Board of Ed, we're pushing between 6 and 7. The
Right.
town side is around 350, 400 tops.
Okay, thanks.
Which is
Return to fund balance?
Yep. A lot of that is excess revenues too. So excess revenues
Like from
increase
ambulance
that
and-
number.
Yeah.
No, from like
It's a separate fund.
over collection of taxes. We budget 99%. We collected 99.3. That 0.3 is the overage. Things like MERS fees or how do they call it when you sell a house? The conveyance tax.
Oh,
things
yeah,
like
yeah, I
that.
forgot
So
about that, yeah.
we budgeted at say 70,000 of conveyance tax. We collected 105. You never
Okay.
know what you're going to collect on those. It's
Some
a
big
best
building
guess.
permits.
Yeah,
Big
building
dollar
permits this year were way over with the solar field and
Oh, yeah, I forgot
something
about that up
else.
Hilton Road, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and something else was big, and
What's it?
yeah, we're.
Penny? No. Is it-
I think they were. I think they were in fiscal 19 was their permit.
Any rate,
But
Well,
anyway,
it is.
yeah. So
Yeah.
all these fees. So our revenues are probably $200,000 over
Yeah.
what we anticipated, while our expenses are probably about 105,000 under budget.
So with the 600,000 to 700,000 return to the fund balance, that pretty much covers the overage for the budget for this year, right?
About
No.
75% of
Yeah.
what we allotted.
And what a lot of towns do, and what's been our practice is that kind of an overage, when you're actually using fund balance, that's just automatically rolled into the next year. So
Right.
so the delta now isn't 1.2 million. It's
About
probably 600,
500,000.
Yeah.
5 or 600,000.
And as you know, we use those fund balances to supplement a potential tax increase. That's the option we have.
Right. The question was whether it's too big or not.
Well,
Right. Well, that was a question because we had brought the percentage down to 16.2 or
Yeah,
something
now it's
like
going to
that.
be about
That's-
18. I think I
Right.
factored it at 18.1.
Right. But
Is
then
the
again-
estimate.
And
right
some
now.
towns feel comfortable at 10%.
Right.
Exactly.
well,
Exactly.
we don't. But,
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I'm just-
it depends on the circumstances and.
Yeah. And that's
and
important.
So in other words,
emergency.
there's room for
Yeah,
flexibility.
There's room
Yeah.
for
so to
flexibility.
say.
That's well put.
Yep.
We're not in the business to make a profit. We're in business to tax properly, but sometimes, as Brian's indicated, we get additional revenue coming in. And of course, we manage our budget pretty tightly.
And then, and COVID-19 is a perfect example of something pops up and you have to have money on hand to pay for additional expenses. Thankfully, it wasn't, millions of dollars. It wasn't like Storm Alfred where, everything hit the fan and we had hundreds of thousands of dollars of bills to pay.
That's more like a liquidity issue, right?
Right.
Cash flow.
But if your fund balance is, say, 7 or 8% of your budget, you don't have a lot of money on hand, clearly. So if you need $1 million, you might not have $1 million in the bank. You might only have 600,000. So when you are able to have a healthy fund balance where you've got 18%, something like that happens, you have the cash to pay the bills at the time before. You don't have to go to FEMA and say, I need money now to pay my bills.
There
I
was
can
some
pay it
controversy a couple of years ago with regards to
How much we're taxing
the
versus
need
how much
to
we're
tax
Yeah.
True.
when you didn't have the information about what you're getting from the state. And
Yep.
you played a
Right.
little bit high, and
What's the
people-
recommendation?
people
15%,
complain.
12%?
2 months.
They kind
Two
months
of
is a little
your
over
current year's
18%.
budget, so it's around 18.
Yeah, it's about
That-
18.7.
A lot of towns feel that that's an extremely conservative estimate, which was developed in the 1990s. Today, where the access for funds is a little bit more, is quicker, and the banking system is a little more
Efficient.
open and efficient. Tim is right. I mean, you can actually pull, and I've done this, look at other towns, that some of them are 10%, 10 to 12%. We've gone as low as 14 in my 7 years, so.
We
but
believe-
that's something the Board of Finance sets anyway and manages too, right? Not-
Exactly.
Not
They're
ours to
watching
worry
it
about,
closely.
so, yeah.
I personally, conservative, would for a healthy fund balance for a lot
Right,
of
but
reasons.
what is the purpose of a fund balance? Well, we're in a 100-year pandemic right now.
Right.
So
You might need a
that-
couple bucks.
if now's not the time you're going to use some of that reserve to meet the needs, then when is it? It's just a phony cushion.
But more is not always better.
Right, you don't want to get
That is
too
correct.
large. You're absolutely right. You don't want to get
Correct.
too
Because
large.
once you
Because
start
now
going
we're
over
accused
the
of not being able to
20%.
fund
Yep.
our budget and our tax, so that's not
Exactly,
the
so it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
So.
So the specifics on this report, you're going to
Yep.
mention some things?
So the IT budget was one that went well over, and for a number of reasons. So as you can see, what its balancing came from other departments. And again, that was a number of reasons between the IT audit that we had, additional copiers with opening up. Is that across the street, Kibbe Fuller? Opening social services at Kibbe Fuller's. Additional costs there. I think we also had a couple of firewalls that we had to replace that were unforeseen.
It's too slow.
We had things like people working out of home needing monitors
Yep.
to supplement the view on their computers at home.
A couple of laptops we had to purchase.
You'd love some of the stuff I've seen on sales expense reports in the last 3 weeks. Like, yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
The leather
Yeah.
sofa for napping is not a business
Oh,
expense.
God.
No.
So how'd you decide where to find that money?
So I ran the entire budget out and just I literally go line by line or department by department, line by line. Departments that have excess funds within them just got balanced around that way. The ones that didn't, I saved them for last and went back to them. And as you see, every department's not in here. For example, employee benefits aren't in here.
Do departments ever get rewarded for not spending all their money?
They get to keep their job.
Not really. They might
I
get.
would expect to be
In other
part
words,
of
so
the-
you do have the issue of end of year spending then.
No, not really.
You know,
Not really.
Spend the money.
so many people hold that belief, and
Yeah.
and I'm not
It's
so
not-
sure that happens that way.
Well, in the
That's-
federal government it does.
Yeah.
I'm sure it does in the federal.
Well, they rush to spend what's in the budget, just because it's budget.
Because
doesn't
of
mean
what they're going to
they
get next
spend it.
year is based on the base of what they got this year.
Right.
Correct.
And if
And
you
so
don't
we
spend
do
it,
we do
you
a
don't
zero
get credit.
base, so you don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
So-
because you got it last year doesn't mean you're getting it
Correct.
next year.
Based on the transfers that you've done here, is there any red flag for the budget that we just put in for 2021, or is everything looking okay?
No, I'd honestly say everything came out really nicely. Yeah, there were a couple of departments that I haven't touched yet. Like fire still has their last quarter stipends coming in. So before I even start balancing them, I want to get them in and posted so I know what I'm
Sure.
working with. At the time that I did these, we had just got the state police bill in, so I wanted to wait for it to post to see what's left over before I start balancing it out.
So will we have
We
another
did.
series of these?
We will have another series of these in probably the second meeting in August.
Okay.
After we have our payables deadline for the fiscal year is the first week of August. So anything after that comes in will be paid in the new year. So once those are all posted, then I can start going back through everything.
Great.
I see in the assessor's department and the land use department, regular salaries were over what you anticipated. How does that happen?
So the assessor one was because Karen passed her assessor certification mid-year, and so was given a salary increase because of.
And she went from hourly
Yeah.
to exempt.
And so
As
that's
an
really
assistant
like the
assessor.
differential from her increase for the time period. I think that was in December, right?
Yeah.
So it's like right at a half a year. Land use is basically like when Jen stays late for zoning meetings because she's an hourly employee, so she's picking up a couple extra hours here, a couple extra hours there. And so those,
lately.
yeah,
I would say a
and
little more
lately
than a
it,
couple.
I think she's had like 3 meetings.
Yeah, we're looking
Yeah.
to evaluate that, maybe bring her as an example.
yeah.
And then I see under legal services right at the top, of course, that's the one where you were 25% over budget.
Correct.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for that, and I just been waiting to say this for a whole year, was we originally estimated that to be close to what that number is.
Right.
And we were really pushed hard to lower that because it was considered a placeholder.
Correct.
And it really
By
wasn't.
the Board of Finance?
Yeah, and rather than
interesting.
choose to argue that point
See
at
what's
that
happening.
Just in
time,
history, yeah.
we just lowered that budget. So,
Of course, we were hit with quite a few significant legal expenses, whether it's Hillsdale and
Yeah.
or Eastman and or
Yeah,
whatever.
let's hope that doesn't continue.
Well, I think it's pretty much resolved now. But the
No, I'm
point-
talking about next year having
Well,
similar
it's
huge
hard. I mean, it's hard to
controversies
forecast.
that the Board
who's
of,
gonna
the
start.
zoning commission,
well, yeah,
in some way
exactly.
creates them themselves.
Well, yeah, so I'm kind of agreeing with Tim on this one. I mean, if you know the business, and Brian and I make sure we attend all the selectmen meetings, so we know the pulse of the business, what's going on. So if you know the business and you got an idea what's on the horizon, you tend to be able to budget a little bit more accurately than board members who don't really have that intimate knowledge. So
Actually, we fought to have that increase, but as Mike indicates,
We did.
It was an argument we're going to win. So we just put it in, and now you can see what's happening.
and it was same category for separation payout.
Yeah.
We had the same thing.
Yeah, I remember that discussion.
We said
here,
that we have a high potential of retirees with significant years of service.
Mikulski,
And
Yep.
so, yeah.
So
and
that's one you don't see
so-
here because the payment
$36,000,
hasn't posted yet.
Right.
And so the next
Sorry, I
round
missed
you'll
the
see
part.
that one line item in the
It was
selectmen
good.
budget
I wanted to
for
go.
a separation
So-
payout
and
meeting
that'll throw that line item above budget.
well
we have a
above
couple
budget.
potential
So,
employees retiring next year too. So
Yeah, and we're still sitting at 10,000, which doesn't cover
No.
anyone.
person's
Wouldn't cover
been
me
here
if I left
25
right
or
now.
30 years, he's going to get a large payout, which is not good.
It wouldn't cover me if I left right now. 10,000.
Well, you're overpaid.
make a motion that we send the end of year transfers report to the Board of Finance.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? Tim and Tim?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll sign this. Okay, opportunity at agenda items. I have a couple I'd like to mention. This past week has not been a good one. We had a flood in the fire department.
Again?
Put about an inch of
Same
water,
spot.
Oh my gosh.
which Todd will address. And then two days ago, we had a lightning strike at the fire department.
It's
should we like move them to some other building?
Kermit.
We put a bubble
Kermit
around
is
It's
that.
like a bad
Yeah,
corner.
we're on first name basis.
And then
Yeah.
locusts attacked.
Yeah.
The fire department, yes.
Right. So I asked Todd to be here, so Todd can give us the rundown, but it was not a good week.
No, the flood is, it happens every 13 months now, third year in a row, because the underlying cause is that the water pressure on the street is too high. It's not just us that have a problem. We're looking at putting more pressure
Governor.
reducers in the
Yeah.
lines to stop this. What happened this weekend was a 2-inch dedicated line that goes into the bay. There was a structure fire in Ellington on Saturday, and when the tankers came back, they fill it with this 2-inch line, and when they shut it off with the ball valve, there's so much pressure, it creates a lot of shock to the system, and one of the seals in the utility room where the lines come in blew and caused 5 inches of water in that fire department.
The floor was
Somebody
in.
saw it,
The
and it
floor.
wasn't
Yeah.
8 inches of water. But same thing, we need, we gotta change the floor in the gym and the women's locker room, got ruined. And the walls are all right, but I called Serpro, I was there immediately, got Serpro in the.
This is covered by insurance?
Yes, we've got a claim number, I met the adjuster today.
What do you estimate that cost, Todd, just for the water?
Serpro, I don't know, because they bill directly to the
No, I'm
insurance.
talking
company.
about, yeah,
But
okay.
as far as the damage,
Yeah.
probably several $1,000s for the walls and the floors.
Okay.
And Serpro is, you gotta do whatever you gotta do and get us the receipts. The lightning strike was just, might as well, on Wednesday.
I can't believe that
That
happened.
fried the control board for the backup generator as well as one of the switches, the power over Ethernet switches, so the cameras are down.
Just, I don't have a price on that.
Yeah,
I'm just.
but I don't think that'll be an insurance claim. The generator damage is about 1,800, the switch
Oh, okay,
is
that's
not
our
gonna be
deductible,
6,
yeah.
it won't meet our deductible, so
Yeah.
we're gonna have to eat that out of the building.
Yeah.
I told Chief Roach to move his office, I'm not going down there anymore. It's just-
Didn't we have a
Snake
discussion
pit.
about water pressure when they were
We've
thinking
been
about
fighting
having
with
a
Connecticut
hydrant?
Water for over 10 years about this, and they maintain, they come out, put a meter on it, they don't tell us what it is, but they say it's women's spec. We maintain 160 pounds is too high, it should be around 80 or 90 or so, at least for the domestic side. Last year, what happened was, on the 6-inch sprinkler line that comes in, the main, the seal blew out of the gate valve because the water's so high in front of it. Well, that was attributed to whenever they operate the hydrant in the back for training, it also shocks the system so much, everything shakes, it loosens the bolts up just enough, and over time, it was enough to blow the seal out. We're gonna get a pressure reducer on at least the domestic line. The 6-inch line, that's quite a project to do that. It's gonna have to be a specialty company to come in and put a pressure reducer. Connecticut Water won't. They did come in and change the hydrant in the back, which was defective, but it hasn't solved the pressure problem. And it's all the same line. When that building was built,
Can't we
It
get
was
them to
built on
pay
that.
for some of this?
I've
despite
got
the-
letters going, they just ignore us. They've been sold 3 times since the last 10
Yeah.
years, and they were just sold again. It's a big corporation.
Connecticut Water one?
We'd have to be able to
Yeah,
prove,
they were.
yeah, they're still, I mean, the bills are still gonna be
Yeah.
water, but there's a big corporation on them now.
We have to pay the water bill for all the water that's on the floor.
Well, no, that is actually part of the hydrant system, so we
Oh.
don't pay from,
Oh,
when they
okay.
drop the tanker, that, we just pay a line fee,
I
like we
see.
do with all hydrants, so
Oh,
that's
okay.
not metered.
Well, they'll say your line usage last year was this high, so therefore you pay more.
Yeah, they've been difficult.
That must be why they come out and loosen the bolts on all those valves when they come out.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We've allocated funds to basically address the repairs needed in the fire department.
I'm
These
gonna-
things,
I'm
these
sending
hits
Brian
keep
every
coming.
month.
Yeah.
You just can't fix it fast enough.
Yeah, I think they have to.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You just
I mean,
cannot
this
fix
is
it
the
fast
first
enough
time.
down there.
It's obviously their problem.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad they're
Thanks,
doing
Todd.
it.
Gentlemen, any additional comments or items to be added to discuss?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about the roads. I mean, I saw your chip and seal,
Yep.
and I've actually had a couple of calls from people that just, it's a common complaint of people in town is
It
the
damages
roads.
their car or gets stuck on.
Yeah, and the question is, when the town is repairing a road, chip and seal is more of a dressing than
It's a
is
maintenance.
shimming the road.
Oh, absolutely, it's
Yeah.
a maintenance treatment.
Right,
It's kinda like.
and sometimes you just like, in the Navy, they call it, what are they,
Lipstick.
gun decking,
Oh,
you know, where you just paint over a hole in the deck or something.
oh great, great.
It's, you know, it's like,
But it's
hey,
a
Going to
thick coat of
battle.
paint,
That's
we're all
the
good.
thing.
no, in the old days, actually, in the old days, they actually had dropped cannonballs, and they would have big holes around the cannons. And in order to fix that, they would just, put down sawdust and paint over it.
Really?
Yeah,
We don't
That's
do that.
interesting.
that's where the term gun decking came from.
Wow.
So
Do
that
to my driveway.
There are-
it
there are
does kind of
potholes
relate
that need
to
addressing.
chip and seal, where
Yeah.
it's a dressing that goes on top. But if
Right.
you don't fix the holes in the road, they erode even further, and your
That's
chip and
correct.
seal is just a waste of money
Yeah.
because you're going to have to redo the road. And
But he brings up a good point. Do you patch the holes before you chip and seal?
Yes, there are
Okay.
some areas that
Right.
the schedule and the COVID, we didn't have a chance to patch some holes. We will go back and patch those afterwards. We're always up patching. This is a maintenance treatment. I would love to overlay the road, which is the next level, and we'll be doing that next week on some of the roads that need a higher level. It's not.
the
chip
two that
and
were
seal is
mentioned
not structural.
specifically were Durkee and Mountain Road.
Durkee is gonna be overlaid.
Yeah, that's.
Mountain Road was rebuilt. what,
Mountain
4
Road's
years
brand new.
4 or
Yeah.
5 years ago.
No, I'm talking Mountain View Road. I'm
Mountain
sorry,
View.
Mountain View.
Mountain View,
There's
we're
a
not doing
disaster.
anything this year. Next
Yeah.
year, it will be overlaid 1.5 paved, which is the higher level than chip seal. That's why we didn't do it. We're saving, that's a third year of the bonding.
So, just to take you back, we actually had Street Scan
Yeah.
is a software and a company actually
Right.
sponsored by CCM
About a year ago, right?
about a couple of 2
Couple
years
years
ago, I'd
ago,
say.
yeah.
Did the
Surveyed
entire
all the
town.
streets.
They surveyed the entire town and actually accumulated all the data for all the roads, classified them,
Sorry about that. Yeah.
risk ranked them, and then we took the top.
All the
We
main
took,
roads.
out of the 82 miles of roads in town, we took 45 of them and said, we're never going to be able to do all this maintenance based on the state funding. We have to bite a big chunk off.
Mhm.
So that's how we put the bond together, and it's a 3-year plan. And as Todd said, some of it is.
So the survey was 2019.
Oh,
This year will be
So I
7.
would say 2018. That's
The bond, yeah, you can.
That was
Yeah.
What?
For the streets.
3 years.
Last year was the
And,
first year of
um,
spending the money.
4 million.
Bond project.
That was total 4 million, yeah.
Right, that's 4 million for roads. Like Todd says, some of it's chip seal, some of it is grind and mill and pave over. Depends on the condition of the road. So,
The point is that if the road is deteriorating and you just
yeah.
chip seal over the top of it.
Well, it
but
extends
we
the life
would.
somewhat.
Well,
we wouldn't-
I
we're not
disagree
making-
though. I think you're,
Well,
some
he's
cases
got what that's
maybe
got.
wasting your money
We would be.
because
That's
the
why
road
we're
continues
having.
to
Right.
deteriorate
That's why we're doing
underneath your chip seal.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
That's why
but
we're
not
making
doing
data-driven
that. What we're just doing
decisions
is
based
structurally
on-
sound. What we're not, like Durkee, we did half of a chip seal, because that part was good. The other half, the west part, we're overlaying this year, because that needs a higher level of treatment. Durkee's half and half. Mountain View will be overlaid next year. Upper Stafford will be overlaid next year.
To
There's a
Tim's
couple-
point, Todd, the question I think I want to ask, I think is following up what he's saying, is that if we're chip sealing, that extends the maintenance life of that
Absolutely,
road?
yeah.
Okay.
You get 5 to 7 years out of a chip seal road that is in decent condition.
Right.
All the roads are rated on a pavement condition index, PCI.
Right.
0 to 100, 0 being completely sealed, 100 being new. Nothing ever gets 100, but they get 98. And we rated them all, and we took everything under 80 and said, okay, what can we do with limited funds? Because if we're talking about paving, it's 3 times the cost of chip sealing. So you look at the best treatment for the condition, the overall condition of the road, and then you go forward with that. And that's what we did. We're going to do about 42,
So,
45
I mean,
miles.
it's a plan that never ends. I mean, it's
Yeah.
cyclical.
Sure.
So,
You know, after we do next year, we'll look at all the local roads, and I've gotten a lot of comments, when are you going to do my road? Well,
But you say well, you balance
When you get
with
to my-
funds available, so how often do you go back and see whether the funds that you've planned for are really enough to support the future?
Do we still get the TAR grant?
Well, that's
Yeah, we
really
still
driven by a lot
Get
of
the
state
TAR
funding
money.
with TAR, LOSUP to a lesser extent, some of the MERS
We get
or 80,000 from that.
grants from municipal
we are,
aid.
we're getting funding from TAR, and it's town road maintenance. And what we tend to do with that is actually use to help defray a tax increase by using town road maintenance fund to offset operating costs that would otherwise be in the DPW budget.
And that's how's that fund created?
It's just a fund.
Yeah, it's a state grant.
It's a state grant fund.
It's a formula based on your miles of road
Right.
the state gives to every
Yeah.
town.
And it is a
And
what?
population.
And
It's a reimbursement.
statutorily, you have to
It's a
limit
bonding.
it to certain
Okay.
town
You
road
have to use the
maintenance
roads and the
categories,
roads.
which we do.
Is that the basic source of state money?
For
Uh,
roads.
For roads,
yeah,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
roads, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
And
then
Tim,
then there's another state bond, it's
Municipal
called
grants and
municipal
aid.
grants, yeah, and that, we chose to put that money in the town aid road fund also. It's a much smaller grant.
And as I recall, one of those grants, might be the town aid road one, is a pass-through, so the invoices go directly to the state against that grant?
No.
Is there
They
one
make
that does that?
payments, what, semi-annually or-
Yeah,
'Cause there was one that
two
came up-
payments a year. It's
there
a
was-
bonding money. So
There was
once
one
they
that came up
bond,
in finance a couple years ago that we had this secret fund, and it was
Everybody
not
calls
a
it secret fund.
Well,
It's
it's not-
LOSUP.
Every town has it.
Oh, LOSUP?
LOSUP,
We have an
What's that?
entitlement. If people,
There you go.
yeah,
people claim we have the money and we're hiding it.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, that was.
We have a book entry entitlement
yep.
in OPM that says, every year, every town gets them, that you can choose not to exercise your entitlement and let it accumulate, or you can choose to start using it however you want. We are the belief, I think in prior administrations, they were using it to pave parking lots. And I
Build
believe it's
sidewalks.
in sidewalks. I believe it's premium money that needs to be used on projects you otherwise can't fund. And so this past year, we used it to do tennis courts.
And $100,000 of
And we
firehouse
used it to do
repairs.
some money in the firehouse instead of going out to bond. We put together a 5-year plan. And so you don't get that money until you get pre-approval. You say, hey, we got a firehouse
This is a
project.
project we want to do.
And this is
They
what we're going to
approve it.
do. And they go, the state goes, okay, that qualifies. And then you just
And then you do
you
the project.
do the work, and you let them know
and you
it's
get
done.
reimbursed.
Give them you fill out the forms, and you get reimbursed. But then they reduce your entitlement. So it's
But I wanted Tim to be aware that comes up every once in a while, that we've got this pool of
Yeah.
Yeah,
undocumented money.
We never actually
It's not-
get the money
Right.
until you spend it.
I want to address that publicly. We don't hide anything. It's
No.
all open.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, there are no slush funds or hidden funds or whatever. I mean, it's all
Right.
audited, you know. And there's a misconception about that, unfortunately.
The biggest misconception the public has is they argue that we, A, have the money, and they're counting the TAR funds and the municipal project bond funds,
And the
which
local
don't go
entitlement.
into the general fund
Right.
and don't get voted on. They're not part of the budget. They are separate funds statutorily set up where that money is spent for special purpose. It's a special purpose fund, just like the cemetery fund is a special purpose fiduciary fund, and that money is spent for cemetery. We don't tax the town for anything that we spend in the cemetery. That is based on the money that accumulates in that fund. So
It doesn't belong to the town.
that
It does.
Yeah.
It's just not taxpayer dollars.
It's just not taxpayer dollars.
It belongs to the town?
It's still
Yeah,
town
it does.
money.
It's town money. Yeah, it's one of the
I
towns.
thought it was separate from the
It's
town.
No, this
a fund that is
we have a
controlled by
we don't
the
have a
town.
separate cemetery association. We
Yeah.
have a cemetery committee, which is an arm of the town. So our cemetery is on town property, run by a town committee. So that's kind of how that works.
And all of these funds have rules around them. The TAR
Yep.
fund has to be used for road
Yeah.
work, you can use it for guardrail signs, salt, and all that kind of thing.
Tree
Road
work.
patching, but it has tree work. It's
Bridges.
special.
This
You
whole
can't use
road,
it for a building. You
Right.
have to use it for.
this whole road area though, obviously is one that is a high priority for
Yeah.
many residents.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely.
Well, which
Roads
is
and
why,
schools,
instead of eyeballing it, and
Yeah.
back before we took over, I mean, they would hire an intern, who, that's great. You're giving an intern in engineering a job, going
Yeah.
around eyeballing the roads in town and saying, this road needs this and that. No, now we drive 100% of the roads with an automated vehicle that takes into condition of the town, and he makes data-driven decisions. He can prioritize based on the information that he is getting from the contractor.
The decision's not parochial, they're independent,
Mhm.
you know, it's.
So, yeah, do you have some human element in there to make an assessment on, well, do we do this road versus that road? Yeah, but you know the conditions of your road, and they're ranked, and they're based on certain criteria, and you know that this road is better than that road. You have the data that proves it.
6
And
years
you got
ago.
a case like like the town of Enfield where what was that road? Summers Road.
Oh, Moody and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Moody and
that
Summers,
road's
yeah.
They
It's
finally
just-
fixed it.
It's beautiful now.
Yeah, it
But
is.
it only took 10 years.
And it'll take like 4
Right.
weeks to tear
Well,
it
they
up with
held
the
off
trucks.
because they said they have a drainage problem, which they do.
Yeah.
And they were thinking they were gonna put drainage infrastructure in, but I think enough people finally made the noise to say, that would be nice, and that's the proper thing to do, but could you at least just pave it for now?
That's
to make
terrible,
it so it's
dangerous.
passable?
I mean, drainage infrastructure like he did for Mountain Road.
Yes, yeah, put in catchments, culverts, detention
Mhm.
basins, because it's very flat over there, and there's nowhere for the water to go. So the base gets wet all the time, and it really, that's why it destroys.
But
the
that
road.
Mountain Road project was over $3 million. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an expensive deal.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
let's
6
see
years
what-
ago
Okay.
too, the road maintenance budget was
Nothing.
a lot higher, and we were paving 10 miles of road a
Oh,
year.
the
And-
taxpayer.
Yeah, and you know, over budget cuts year over year over year.
Yeah, it was going 10 miles a year.
We've gone from 10
7, 8
miles to
miles a
7
year,
miles
7
to
miles
6
a year.
to 3.
Oh, and now we're down to 4 miles a year, and I said, well, time out. It's going to take
We're never gonna.
100 years
We're
to
never gonna stay on the cycle.
pave this town. So we've got to catch up. We've got to make one big move with a bond to do a lot, and I foresee doing that again in a couple of years.
That's where the 4
Do the
million comes in.
remaining.
The 4 million is not the entire road, so you're.
No, that was just for these roads that were
Right,
due.
it's just yeah.
So what do we estimate another additional expenditure would be for the balance?
It'll probably be about that again.
But yeah, so we have 90,
Yeah,
82 or
we have
90 miles of road.
89.58 miles of road.
Okay, 90 miles of road,
We're
we're
doing
doing
A little
45.
bit less than half of it.
So another 4 million.
And we
That's
chose to
today's
do
numbers.
main arteries as opposed to side streets and circles and
Right.
cul-de-sacs, which
But,
probably don't have, they have a
Don't have
longer
the traffic.
lifespan, put it that way,
but that's
because
where
they
you
don't
get
have
the
the traffic.
complaints.
Yeah. When are you
Oh,
gonna do
the
my
road
road?
fixed.
Well,
Yeah.
the road doesn't need it. Real-
It's about
But
priorities.
then again, with the bond rates down where they are,
Right.
it could be an opportunity to.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mike and I were talking about that today. We're probably looking seriously at that. I mean, interest rates are now in the 2s versus 4 when we first looked at it. I think you and I discussed.
Yeah, we were
Mike, but-
projecting a 4% in our projections, it's down in the 2 category,
Right.
so we should be able to, we maybe could come out of this bond and look at our debt service and say, hey, we maybe bond sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
The infrastructure needs to be addressed. We already talked about the fire
Yeah.
department.
Mhm.
Roads are, if you don't have good roads, you got a
Yeah.
problem.
And address it while it's cheap. I mean,
And
that's-
these buildings now are, they get long in the tooth.
Even the fire
I
department,
mean,
which has been a problem.
if you were to just look at parking lot and roofs on Vision Boulevard,
Yeah.
you're talking millions.
Okay.
Well, I forgot to tell you, the toilet restroom downstairs overflowed and we had to dig up. It's in this building. So, I mean, infrastructure, you've got to
Yeah.
address it, okay? And I agree with Mike. I think, and Tim, with interest rates where they are, I don't think they get much lower. So
Yeah.
now's the time to do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have one thing, but it's really about communications, and it goes to kind of what we were just talking about, people thinking that we've got piles of money, we don't, and of course, to last night's event.
Yeah,
Setting aside the rhetoric online,
which was
it's on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Both sides are off the charts. I'm disappointed that we didn't have an official response on the town website to say, we're cognizant of what's going on in the community, but the stuff I'm reading about, they don't have a permit, we don't need a permit. It'd be nice if we had an official statement that let the public know when we have things like this, that we're aware of it, we've asked them to follow channels, they've followed channels, and we've made decisions. So just to get some transparency out there, because the madness, it masked.
Yeah, I think.
Let me just finish up.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
It masked the need for the discussion that has to happen. So if you were out front last night for the presentations that the young folks made, it was a lot of kids that came here for choice schools. It was some residents. There is likely a problem at the school. I know what I went through when I was on Board of Ed, and my kids were bullied, but it certainly wasn't a race thing.
So it's because you're on the Board of Ed?
Yeah, and I think it absolutely was. There's no doubt
Really?
in my mind. Absolutely. And the administration at the high school refused to advocate for students. And I got to believe that a lot of what I heard last night was accurate. So that's an issue that I'll take up with the Board of Ed. So we have an issue in town. We had the commission that got set up before
The community
before
conversation.
the community
which-
conversation, which kind of trailed off once COVID hit. We may want to revisit that.
It is. That's
Absolutely.
been reconstituted. Kathy Devon's having that up. And
So
the irony
if I
about
may,
it. I'm
if I
sorry.
may, I just think that we owe our constituents some official information when things like this are going on. It's a big thing in town, and you see the shouts and the jeers from crowds on the street. You've got the marchers shouting and jeering back. That does not end well in most communities. Now, fortunately, I love the email you sent to the police, by the way. They were freaking spectacular.
Yeah.
State, local, the coordination with DPW, with fire, with everybody else they had to coordinate with. I'm so glad that you sent that out. But, to be on the front end of it would serve us well. So I got one other half of that, but
Okay,
I'll stop
I
there.
want to make a few comments. We spent a lot of time discussing it with the state police, DPW, fire, emergency response, and the advocates, okay? We took our lead from Lieutenant Palmer and the state police out of Troop C. They have done multiple events like this. Their recommendation to us was dampen down the communication. I'm just telling you, I agree with, I'll address your point later. Don't advertise this, be compromising, offer concessions, whether it's permits, whatever the case may be, because they're going to do it anyhow. So you end up fining somebody for $100, and you can have all kind of publicity and additional responses, etc. So we did that. Okay. Now the issue in terms of the permit, they didn't meet the criteria as it relates to mass gathering. We sent that to Andy Rocket. He got that information. Problem in terms of communication, our Facebook page was done.
That was the problem.
So we've
week.
had this discussion before. Facebook is a nice add-on, but the official
I'm
has
talking
to
about
be
the
on
town Facebook, yeah.
I understand, but the official communication has to be on our website.
Oh,
Facebook
I
is a
put a
nice
traffic
add-on.
advisory out,
I understand.
because that's what we were, the state police said,
Okay.
keep it minimized, tell people it's a traffic advisory,
That's
and
right.
this, that, and the other thing.
And I think that-
And everybody, I know who was on Facebook, because I saw all the posts,
So,
it was out there with their little track.
I'm not on it, so I only hear
Well,
what I hear, right?
She has a good point.
So-
And the communication was out there because I can show you letters and telephones.
Well,
and
our
personal
office
visits.
was very busy
Yeah.
for a week about
And
this,
so-
so.
Right, but I'm
Excuse me, I'm
Yep.
trying to balance what we were given instructions from the state police in terms of not over publicizing this versus the response in terms, we had some real legitimate threats,
Yeah.
serious threats. And we didn't want to go out and basically kind of make public statements that get everybody hopped up.
Yeah.
There was enough emotion generated
There's a
here.
lot of emotion.
But anticipation and response to what you say, and I happen to agree with that. I'm trying to thread that needle, so to speak, in terms of giving proper information to people, which we try to do in terms of traffic and safety and protection, versus the need to know.
Right, and
Sure.
people that did reach out to us, whether it was on the phone, people walking in Bud's office, we explained to them what we are doing with, and what the town's doing, what was recommended, be strategic.
I'll
Which
tell you
I
something.
understand. So
And
you got to take that
safety was our
advice,
first-
but you got us to help you too, to say what should we do? Because all I'm suggesting is that when the next thing happens, whatever that thing is, whether it's a health crisis, whether it's a storm that comes through, we're often criticized about having secret meetings, and when just let me finish. When you say we met with the stakeholders, we met with this one, we met with half the town goes, see, there they go again with their. And I know it's all done for the right reasons, and it's a thing that you can't usually win. But to be silent on when the community is speaking as loudly as they were, I think, is a disservice to those who really want the real information, not the ends of the spectrum, but the majority of the town that's in the middle.
But I can tell you,
would like
I
to know.
sent numerous letters out to so-called people in the know, which I know are communicating, okay?
But it was
Now,
all on Facebook.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, the information was out there. Now, if you want some official statement from the Board
And
of
it was
Selectmen,
cruel.
I'm open to that, okay?
Oh,
and-
Facebook was cruel. So
But that's not what we want to.
I think what he's talking. I think one of the things he's talking about is misinformation that's out there on both sides.
Yeah.
It could be handled directly by putting these are the facts
correct.
and having a
And-
place where people feel confident when they read facts. This is credible information.
Yeah.
And Andy reached out to me because he hadn't heard.
Yeah.
And then I reached out to you and it got sent. So I don't even know, do we have a process when somebody puts in
Oh,
an
yeah.
application that they get a
Yeah, I think
response?
I
And
said
granted,
that.
we had like 3 hours instead of 90 days, so I get that.
Yeah, we have a process.
But
There's a
just you
process.
understand,
Yep.
the process is fairly procedural, which I outlined to you. The state police advise us to basically not waive it, but essentially,
Well, it's illegal. It was illegal.
yeah,
They-
we
they-
didn't want to go there.
Right.
Okay, and so yes, what both of you are saying is, well, people say, well, how can the town do this? Permit an illegal march. It wasn't illegal, but it was illegal from the state standpoint because it was on a state road.
Route 190. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, it's kind of
I
a
know,
conundrum.
it's a balance,
So,
right?
But
There's a
I'll
big
make
balance.
I'll make the commitment to both of you gentlemen. I respect both of your opinions. If we have another situation like this, we ought to get together and find out a proper response based upon the advice we're getting from people like at the state level that have done this.
Yep.
Yeah,
It was.
Then at least we got each other's backs, because I'm sure
But
you
I
got
tell you
calls,
something.
I got calls, you got calls, you got calls.
It was a mess here. We spent a lot of time. There was a lot of emotion. I'm pleased that we didn't have a lone wolf episode.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm pleased.
We had over. I can tell you, we had over 20 officers. That includes state as
They
well
were
as.
so freaking
Local.
professional. They were.
The idea was to keep them off.
The drone. too.
Yeah, we had a drone.
I
We
didn't
had
see the drone.
motorcyclists.
Yep.
I mean, we were prepared.
Yeah.
Now, those gentlemen and ladies.
How many
if there
people were
ladies-
actually in this march? By the way?
70.
No, I counted. There were 84 when we left.
Okay.
Parking
We
lot.
estimated 70.
There were 88 at the fire department. There were 94 when we hit 83.
Right. So it's
So
a
it
highly.
was a good crowd. It was mostly respectful. There were the
Yeah.
fringes, right?
Well, there was this disinformation of there were buses hired by some,
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
foreign company that were bringing people in from
This
Springfield
always
and
seems to be a
Hartford.
rumor, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct, and that's where we've got no dog in the hunt there. Whoever shows up. You can't lock the
Yeah, you
borders
can't.
down, right? So we can't put an official statement that says, "Oh, the towners not welcome." But things that relate to
Well, for example,
ordinance,
No, but if you know there's
laws,
10 buses
whatever.
coming in from out of town, from Hartford, they're going to drop off
Staff up.
300 people.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
That
different.
I
raises
mean, the implication was it was a town-sanctioned event, which it was not. We permitted them to do what their right is under the Constitution. They were to protest. My concern and our concern should be the safety of the citizens, and that's what we emphasized on.
And I think
In terms of
that
how you
was
communicate
demonstrated,
that, I'm open to that.
Yeah, I think
I'll
safety
accept
was
that.
absolutely demonstrated, and from the state to the local police.
And I want to thank publicly the advocates who basically did march because I think they control their people. We had open discussions with them saying, listen, you don't want this to backfire, get blowback because you have some negativity here. And I think they saw that. I mean, we all know a lot of the people. In fact, my granddaughter was involved in that too. So,
Okay, same book, different chapter. I got an email from a town employee questioning the salary adjustments and the bonuses that were paid out. Mathematically, they all looked good. I didn't see anything that was out of whack there. But I recall last year we voted on authorizing you to make those adjustments. I don't recall us having that discussion this year.
no, we didn't have that discussion this year. What we did was we implemented a performance appraisal system. And based upon that appraisal system, I deal with these people every day. I went ahead and made those decisions. Okay, in the past, it had not been done.
Yep.
I did it last year when you were on the board and Kathy was on the board because I felt that transparency was important.
I think transparency still is, my opinion. I'll defer to Tim here in a minute. Are all performance reviews done? 100%.
No, there's probably a few still
Yeah, there's
that needs to be done. We were in the middle of that one.
Yeah, I think we have.
And then
Have two directors.
The reason that I'd personally like to be part of that approval process, but isn't to necessarily nickel and dime who gets raises and who doesn't. But for me, the optics of a raise for you for an elected position, you kind of know what it is when you ran for the job. We didn't recruit you. Whereas if we're going out to find a new finance director, we have to recruit, we have to pay a commercial salary. As I said last year, if you look at the minutes back from June 9, it was my recommendation that we don't offer any raises for people who are in elected positions.
We did that last year.
I would have recommended the same this year, and I'm concerned about the optics of $32,000 in bonuses that, whether they're merit-based, I don't know if the bonuses are merit-based or discretionary.
Both.
But to spend $32,000 in a year when we know we've got big expenses in education headed to us, we know we've got COVID things, I would like to be able to have your back and understand how those decisions were made rather than getting phone calls that say, why is this guy writing himself a $3,000 bonus and a 4% raise? It's tough for me to have those conversations if I'm not in the conversation.
You know, who even knows what they were? I mean, I don't know.
I can forward them to you if you like, but
Yeah, I'd love to see.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean,
Good.
I agree with you. That's part of the selectmen's
yeah.
job, and it's important that we all be involved because it makes it not just one person's views. It makes it.
And I think it allows us to support the decisions that are being made.
Yeah.
Because again, people think, why are those guys at town hall making that kind of money? They have no idea how much work everybody does here.
Well, I just will make one personal comment.
Yep.
You're right. I took this job. I don't need this job. And some of the days I just want to walk out of here. I was paid 4 times what I'm being currently paid here in industry. That's beside the point. I don't do it for the money. Okay, but there's a performance factor here. We take a look at people in terms of the job content versus what they're paid in other towns. I believe in maintaining a structure as it relates to what people are paid. We also want to retain employees. I've had these open discussions with both Mike and Brian. Perhaps Mike, you'd like to comment in terms of some of the comments I'm making as it relates to this, because we've had these open discussions. But what we don't want to do is underpay people. We want to retain the core people that we have here, which we have a lot of folks, okay? And in my opinion, since I've come into this job, we've did a concentrated effort to improve morale and basically motivate people, and I think we've done that.
Which is the discussion we had last year, and Kathy and I could support you on it. My only point is not to question who's getting raises and why. It's to let us be part of the conversation, so we've got your back
We'll
on
do
the
this
phone
from this
rings.
point forward.
So
Okay.
that's just the recommendation.
Okay.
I'm not criticizing the dollar amounts other than my own personal opinion on elected officials. Just, you knew what it was walking in, man. My personal opinion, so.
I can walk out as fast as I walked in, too.
As we all can.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me express my opinion.
No problem, Mike. Tim, I'm sorry, Mike, you were going to say something.
No, well, this is another chapter. This goes back to a point that Tim started to make about that committee when we had that incident at the school and the blackface incident, and the superintendent actually came forth and wanted to do something and requested that the Board of Selectmen, and I don't think anyone's ever really taken full credit for this here. This board has not taken credit. And to his point, that kind of stuff needs to be pointed out, that that the selectmen voted to form that committee. They constituted that committee. That committee did meet, and I'm not really sure because I wasn't on it, but I guess they had a facilitator that really wasn't a fit, and therefore the
I was
committee
part of it. It was
lost
very good.
lost some interest, and it kind of waned.
Mhm.
I'm unaware that the selectmen ever dissolved that committee.
No.
And
No.
I always thought that it should be reconstituted because all the issues that they were talking about and actually had the foresight to see the selectmen and voted on are now happening.
So,
And everyone thinks you're sitting in here twiddling thumbs when in fact you did. And I had this talk with Bud the other day, and I'm saying, why aren't we taking credit for this? Why aren't we putting the committee back together again?
so I will say to that was brought up at the DTC meeting
Yeah.
by some people who were on that committee.
Yeah.
And they reiterated all the resources that were made available to everyone in this town to pursue courses of action and for all those right reasons.
Yeah.
And there is a sensationalism aspect of the group that wants to get together, and
Yeah.
unfortunately it
Yeah.
masks the real message of work we may need to do. And that fell on deaf ears, but I think it's worth.
But it's worth
It's
it's
worth
worth having
restating,
that
yes.
dialogue in that
Yeah.
committee if you have the right person
Correct. And I think
facilitating it.
I think if we can somehow maybe put it on the agenda for a couple of weeks, Kim, how do we reinvigorate that committee or hold them accountable
Well,
for some
it-
date?
You don't want group speak coming out of that committee.
No.
You want both sides in there. You want them even arguing the points.
You do, but
Because it's better than yelling back and forth, marching down Main Street.
or posting your thoughts online with no
Right.
basis of fact behind it. So-
I happen to
Right.
think the best way.
But there was advocacy for the group.
So the
during
committee,
that
committee
DTC
again is called Coming Together.
Yeah, I think the best
Community
aspect,
conversation.
the best
Community
aspect to
conversation.
approach this is this committee conversation, which we set up, and it's got responsible people in it. I asked Kathy to get involved in it. She
Could
is
we-
involved in it.
Could we invite someone from that to the next meeting to let us know how do we get all that good work out? And one of the complaints that I had at the DTC meeting was like any other plan, if it sits on somebody's credenza, it is worthless. You gotta open up and use it like a workbook. And they forgot that all those resources were there, but now we've already got the March planned and folks showing up, so.
We can have Kathy come. I think she's a good advocate for this. She's very responsible. She's very organized.
We have done a lot of good work, and
Yeah.
it does get masked by the.
Who's on the education side in that committee? Is the superintendent?
Ryan was on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was
maybe
some
it
teachers,
helps,
the principal, the new principals on it.
You know, we have new people. I mean, we
There's
have
a lot
like
of
we have like
new
Allison.
people.
who-
She's part of it.
She's part
Okay,
of
but
it.
she wasn't initially.
No,
But
but
again, I
Hartford
think if we-
Foundation involved.
You know,
I think bringing them together and getting a deadline of when they might come back to us with some
maybe there's a new
recommendations, that'd be
dynamic,
great.
a new leadership.
We've been
Maybe
talking
it's in,
about it.
you know, so.
But I happen to agree with you. That's the most legitimate way to pursue this. I mean, people can protest. We have no problem with that. But to solve systemic racism, which I agree with you, I've seen this in the school system too, and I understand and appreciate the response to that. But that starts with a dialogue. That starts with the parents. That starts with the community. So I still advocate for that, but I have no problem. We can invite Kathy, and she can give us an update on that. And we'll start the conversation again. But, you know, it takes two people.
Mm.
Those people for and those people that are protesting.
Well, it's funny, there was one that I received that said, she said, we're going to change this town. There's no one person that can change the town. It takes a lot of us to work together and really identify what the
Well,
issues are
at some
to
point,
get it to a better state, and I think
at
we
some
can do
point
that.
I'll share some of the information, some of the demands, which weren't realistic. And the emotion, I'm trying to separate all that out. And it's been going on for a long time.
And that's why I started this by trying to say, if you boil it down, it comes down to communication.
Right.
It isn't this one thing or that one thing. It's this pattern of how do we do a better job of expressing to the town all the work that we're doing to solve issues, whether they're financial, whether they're educational, whether they're roads, whether they're HR. We work hard at this, and to Mike's point, I don't think we get credit for that, but that's not why you take these roles. Our job is to lead through that and do the best we can to make the town a great place, and it is a great town, so hopefully we can learn from that and get good people on it.
Yeah, I think government can only do so much. You know, we can't advocate to change.
Best job is to get out of the way and just support the
Yeah,
right.
that's
the
why
right
that's why we
endeavors.
set up this group.
Yep.
And I think that's the best way to solve, or at least address some
Yeah.
issues. I don't think it's solve it. But for government to dictate and basically for us to say we believe in this, I happen to believe in racial equality. I happen to believe in, I'm against hate speech, but I say that. But does it change anything? I think a dialogue.
I think little by little it does. I'm going to share one quick story with you. We were we were marching past the fire department, and there was a car in the westbound lane of 190. It was a black mom, mid-30s, I guess. Windows are down. Little girl sitting in the back seat. She couldn't have been 5 or 6. And she had her window down, and she was chanting with us, Black Lives Matter. And I'm thinking, if you're that 6-year-old girl and you see a bunch of people walking saying you're important, it meant a lot to me. I'll remember that day for a long, long time. I hope she remembers it for a while. And if 80 people did that and made her life just a little bit better, it was worth it. So for all the rhetoric that's out there on both sides, there's a real issue here that needs a voice told. And I wish I had taken a picture of her because she was just adorable. And it made a difference. And I was with 4 or 5 other people. We all saw it and we all were like, wow, that was the moment that we came out for. It wasn't about anything other than making it better for that generation of kids that have to come through this town.
For those people that are viewing this meeting, live streaming, I just want to make the statement that we have bent over backwards to assist and support this, okay? In terms of lack of communication, we can do a better job of that. I'm prepared to address that, okay? To try to give everybody the necessary information while in the process of keeping everybody safe. So, I mean...
And I get we're never going to have 100% agreement on it.
Well, I can
never
tell
on
you.
a lot of
Yeah,
issues.
I can tell you, I spent half an hour on the phone with Bud on Monday morning just to understand the process that he'd gone through, and he thoroughly explained what the planning was, who the players were, what had been done, what was the purpose, and how it was going to be carried out. And I must say I was pretty impressed.
Well, thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. And the problem is getting through the fog of all this stuff.
And we know that, right? Trouble is we got 9,000 residents who don't.
But the
People
town
just
website
don't-
issue is something that we could
They just
correct
don't
in the
trust
future.
government anymore, for
Well-
the most part,
I do have one extra subject I wanted to
Okay,
put it out
sure.
briefly here. So this is the...
Thank you.
ready to
Thank you
go
for
with
letting
that?
me
Yeah,
express
just
that. Yes,
to
thank
set
you.
up, Tom, I accept your comments, okay? And we'll address those issues that we talked about. And we'll invite Kathy in here, kind of start the dialogue, but I don't think government has a role in this other than to appoint these committees and encourage them and make the public safe if that's the case, which I've made tonight. I detest hate speech. I embrace racial equality. But what do we do about it? How can we implement that? That has to start at the other level we're talking about. So I think that's the approach we should take, but that's my opinion.
So
Sorry.
this has to do with just the long-range planning committee that I've gone to all meetings. They've had 4 so far. Each meeting lasts for anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. We've got 80-90% of the people on the committee are there every meeting.
Good.
They have great discussions, good group of people, very solid. And they've come up with some recommendations early on because it was thought that this would be particularly helpful particularly for the town to better understand what's the perception of the public as to how things went during the response. And so they've got a survey that they want to put out, and you probably, I don't know if you heard about it, but an email was sent out to a copy of it.
I have it.
Kim is
Thank you.
very much aware of it, and as are you, Bud. And it's going out next week. It's going to be with the sort of the Summers Connect type of approach. But the key, I think one of the keys here that was discussed at the meeting just past Tuesday night was that the primary purpose of the mailer is the survey to get the information.
Right.
So we don't want to drown them with reports. I mean, it's the same. On one hand, you want to put out information about key information the public needs to know about that the town is doing is great, but don't get rid of the happy talk. That talks about, hey, join us for this. Or, I just, you hit them with the facts. That this is what we're doing,
Yeah.
and you want to keep it as short as possible because the whole idea is the mailer is to get people to respond to the survey.
Absolutely. No,
And that's going to be valuable information.
we're
And that
going to put this in the Summers Connect magazine. I've written letter, which in effect stresses what you're talking about.
Hopefully it's not too long, you know.
No, it's not too long.
Okay.
I thought it was well written, and
Yeah.
it touched on
Good.
things that we went through during COVID, and
If you want me to read it to you, I'll be glad to read it
No,
to you, but
that's
the
fine.
committee will take a look at it. But I stress the importance of addressing this survey,
Yeah.
get this information back to us so we can make honest and intelligent decisions going forward. It's important,
Right.
because there will be a next crisis, and I think we did a lot of good things. There's some things we missed, and that's the whole point. We think that we covered everything, but I'm sure people are going to tell us you screwed up here, the communications or response or whatever the case may be. So, and I want to compliment you, Tim, in terms of putting this thing together. And Conoyer, she's done a great job, I guess, as the chairman, right?
She's very good, yeah. Everybody works so well together. I mean, the meetings are terrific.
Good.
good.
And another thing they're going to come up with is some kind of a communications network that the town can take advantage of, and maybe have one go-to person in the town, whether it be full-time or part-time,
I
that
think that's an important element.
is the communications,
Yeah.
point
Yeah.
of contact.
Well, we kind of saw that with Glenn Reynolds, and when he stepped into that job, that maybe we can more formalize that, communication center. Yeah.
And one other thing I want to mention is that one of the recommendations here, because you're trying to learn from this emergency response and be able to assist the town with regards to addressing future ones,
Right.
is that there's a very formal process for emergency planning, and it starts with the Stafford Act, which was passed I think in 1991, and both Ann Conoyer and myself have had direct experience with it. Me and my job as the Naval Liaison Officer for the state of Connecticut for 4 years, and she is her job as a prison warden.
Right.
And what that requires is that you have a separate plan for each type of emergency, whether it be prison break, hurricane, earthquake, and so you don't just have one plan.
Yeah.
And so that when that type of emergency happens, you pull out the plan. You know who the key people are.
Yeah.
Get all the phone numbers. You know what the lines of authority are.
We do have an
You know who's
emergency.
coming in to help as
Yeah,
well.
I'm not sure. It's
It
thick.
needs to be
Yeah.
updated.
I don't
It needs to be
know.
updated. We have to certify with the state of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
The
do
emergency
tabletop
operation plan has to be
tabletop
updated.
exercises.
Yeah,
Right.
we have that, but this, as Mike
But-
indicates, this latest pandemic, nobody ever could
No.
predict this.
Yeah,
or see that.
I know that, but the whole idea is planning ahead. And
Yeah.
So you're not caught flat-footed when something bad happens,
Yeah.
and you learn from prior experience. That's
And I would imagine John's crew responds to most of those emergencies, right? Fire department? To most anything that would happen?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a good thing, because we know that building's going to get hit, so they'll all be out of it.
That's ironic because it burns down.
Terrible.
It is.
But no, I think it's a good idea
Yeah.
because, like I said, I thought we did a superb job here in this town. We mitigated the spread of the virus. We had assets in place to respond. We had, in my opinion, an excellent response by Glenn Reynolds, who stepped into his job.
Yeah.
But there are things that I think we've learned that we can now implement going forward, and we can.
I think the weekly meetings were effective too, that you had.
Yeah.
So that we are all on board. with
and
it.
also the point is that the emergency management director's job is going to be much bigger than 1 day a week.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be-
mean,
Oh, yeah.
I mean that's
Absolutely.
and anyway, that's just
I can see a lot of action items for that person
Yeah.
coming out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he in effect spent more than 1 day a week, as you are aware. I mean, all of us were here on a regular basis, so.
But maybe there's just a whole lot more work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great. Thank you.
Cool.
Any additional items?
Not for me.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
See you in a couple weeks, yeah.
Did you want to play that card?
Good evening, guys.
I don't think he did.
What's wrong with him?
Maybe he did.
I think he did.
He's on his way to the pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, shit.
He didn't do it.
See, I know.